be thinking about with AR, VR? What should they be thinking about with VR, AR that they haven't already, and why should they be doing that?
I have to step in quickly. Ashley nailed it. People aren't thinking about where to get the assets from. This is the biggest stumbling block right now. And Mike, you mentioned it as well, and I believe Matteo, we've all run into this problem. Everybody sees it and goes, "This is amazing. I want it. Here's here's a couple photographs of my product." And getting the 3D models made is a bit of a stumbling block right now. Again, the other thing is education around. Somebody actually sent me a message on LinkedIn while we're on here, asking about can they use photogrammetry to create 3D models, and the answer is yes. You can. If I share my screen here, I can import a 3D model from photogrammetry, but I can't really do anything with it. It doesn't have the ability to animate. It doesn't have the ability to add skins, which may or may not be all right for your sales usage. So if you have a product, it doesn't have any colors. It's just one thing. Photogrammetry may be the perfect solution. But if you have an object, maybe it's a mug, for example, and you want to have 10 different colors, photogrammetry literally overlays photographs on top of a 3D model. So you're kind of limited by what those photographs are at the time.
Yeah, this is Ashley. We have a network of 3D scanning companies and photogrammetry companies we work with, just because it is, you need to mail your product to them to scan. So we created this global network because, if you're in London, you don't want to mail something to California. But it's gotten, the technology has gotten a lot better. And so you can actually do a lot more with photogrammetry than you used to be able to. And I know So Real couldn't make the call today, but So Real is based in Europe. They actually can do shiny objects in glass really well, which others have struggled with in the past. So as Alan said, it all kind of depends on your product, but 3D scanning and photogrammetry is a great place to start if you don't have any 3D assets to begin with.
Yeah, this is Mike. I would just second that. I love photogrammetry. It was actually when I left Wayfair, I was thinking all right, I'm going to jump into photogrammetry for asset creation. And as Ashley mentioned, there are still some technical challenges around it, but we do find that even if you just have, imagery that would go into photogrammetry, for a 360 spin, for example, that can still be really valuable even if the photogrammetry process doesn't give you the best results. You still have something to start with, and it gives artists a better reference than if you just get 2 or 3 pictures. So generally speaking, the more inputs, the better. And I think over time we're going to see the algorithms and the processing, things like photogrammetry and more LiDAR scanners on devices like the iPad Pro will help because, again, the more information you get, the better the outcome is going to be at the end.
Mike, to add one thing to that, I think it's really important to note that 5 years or 6 years ago, I guess, maybe even 7, Google came out with a thing called Project Tango, and it had LiDAR scanners on the front of a phone, on the back end of a phone. And it was just way, way too early. But what it was able to do was create real volumetric 3D just using your phone. Since then, everybody said, no, we're not doing this, we're not building it in. The new iPad Pro launched. It's got a LiDAR scanner in it, so you can start to scan products and spaces and people. And the new Samsung S20 Plus, I have that phone, and it does the same. So I can actually scan people. So I'll find it. I scanned out my brother into 3D. He's going to kill me for this, but let me find that, and I'll show you guys in a second. But the idea is that maybe you can just use the phone that you have because it's one of those things that might be good enough. Again, being able to send this to to 3D modelers, at least they have the shape maybe pre-done with your 3D scanning. The phones are getting so good now. So I foresee that this will be a solution that maybe you just put your phone in a mount and it spins the product around and gives you the 3D object. Right now it's just not that great.
Yeah, I agree. I think the tech still kind of has to get there. As you mentioned, Google Tango, I was thinking back to actually got the opportunity to start Wayfair Next thanks to Google Tango because I had one of the developer tablets. And yeah, I did it for a hackathon project. I was an engineer, running our warehouse management team, but I had that personal passion for AR, VR. So I took my Google Tango tablet and did an AR demo of showing 3D model. And, again, this was ahead of its time. So it impressed people enough to let me start a department, which was awesome, but it wasn't consumer ready, unfortunately. And they launched a few different Tango-enabled devices from the Lenovo Fab 2 to anyway, it's cool to see the technology continue to evolve. And I think Alan's right that we're going to get to high-quality user-generated content in the next decade. And in the meantime, that can, even if it's low quality, that input can be beneficial towards an artist that can polish it up and get it to the level of quality that's expected for an e-commerce opportunity.
Yeah, and just looking at the questions, it looks like there's a question about there's a company that does drone 3D photogrammetry scanning. Yeah, that's something that Ventana is helping with. So if you have like a huge 3D scan file, uploading that to our software can help automatically reduce that file size to the point it's usable on web. So if you reach out to me, we can set up a trial and do some tests. Love to see what you have. I'm just Ashley@ventana.com. And there's one other question on photogrammetry. Yeah, we love to connect with more companies. We look for, basically what we do is we just ask for a few sample files. We'll take a look at them, make sure they're up to our quality standards. Normally we just ask for an OBJ with materials and an MTL file. And then we can kind of go from there. So just shoot me an email. It's your brother, Alan.
That's my brother. You can see that, I literally just walked around him. It's not bad considering it came from a phone, and I literally just walked around him in a circle. Pretty interesting. He's going to kill me for showing this off in public, but oh well.
Alan, how still do you have to be in order for that to come through?
It's actually pretty good. If you're not still, it ends up looking really bad. It's like all warped. And if you notice kind of on the top of the hat here, it kind of missed all this spot here at the top. So it's not perfect, but I mean, the fact is I literally, 10 seconds, I walked around him in a circle, and that was what I got out of it. And now this was in a sunny day, so you can actually start to see, like, because the lighting wasn't even, this side of his face is under a shadow. So, this side got nice and clean, and this side's under a shadow. So it's interesting, but again, being in a game engine, you can actually start to relight things. I was just doing that earlier. You can grab a light and you can start to relight it however you want.
Hey, Alan, what software was that?
This was built into the Samsung. It's called, it's built into my Samsung S20, and it's called, strangely enough, 3D Scanner.
Okay,
Yep.
There you go. Might have to upgrade them on the S10 right now, and I
the
always like playing with that new stuff.
It's so good, and it's got LiDAR built in, so that's how it's able to get this nice, great kind of textures and stuff. But when you use it for just regular AR, the slam on it is amazing. It will stick to any plane because of that LiDAR scanning. It's really cool.
Yeah,
really,
I've been really impressed with it on the iPad Pro, so it's great to see it miniaturizing and getting in devices that are in your pocket.
Indeed.
That's really awesome.
If you guys want to see something new, we just did this yesterday. Load. Right. We just added video in yesterday, so I'm going to see if it'll work. Okay, so here's a cube. If I take the textures off this cube, I'll just take everything off the top there. And I want to add a video, so I'm going to just go to my desktop. I'm going to grab, I know my desktop's messy, but it's okay. I'm going to drag and drop this. So I just dragged and dropped a video here. I can add a folder, vid, import. It imports automatically. It's uploading into the cloud right now. Then I can take that vid and I can drop it onto the albedo of that.
Now, when you really get these live presentations down, it's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So I create a new video. I drag that here, and now the video is there, and you can start to see it playing. Okay. Then I'm going to drag that video onto the albedo. And now, when I go back to the video and hit play, it's real-time playing the video. Of course, it's not UV map, so it's just kind of sitting there. But, yeah, it's all real-time. And then there's no compiling, no crap to worry about. You just hit it. And if I hit this publish button now and hit this and open it up, theoretically, it should play the video, theoretically. This is in our dev server, so it may or may not work. We'll see. Yeah, so it's not playing automatically. The autoplay is not working yet, but you get the point. It's very easy to make. Yeah. And then you can also copy and paste skins to different meshes. making it really easy to edit. And then I can make a copy of this, I can paste it. So you can start to make, different things. And of course you can scale it as well. Anyway, yeah, I won't keep going here. You get the point.
That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
A
few questions that I kind of had as well. We've got retailers that maybe have not gotten their organization to move towards VR, AR, or we've got vendors here that are looking to reach more retailers. Kind of, in your opinion, typically who owns VR, AR within an organization?
That's a really good question.
Good question.
Yeah. That's a good question, and it's all over the map. Ashley, I'm interested to hear what you and Mike have to say, actually, and also Matteo. You probably have more experience than I do on this.
I can answer for my vertical, which is especially consumer packaged food industry, and it depends on the use case, of course. For example, talking about the brands like PepsiCo or Nestle, the use case is under the trade marketing team or the inside team. So the CMO could be the cheese maker. Talking about product digitization and thinking about the strategic point of view behind the 3D digital transformation, I think that it's a C-level decision, because when you have to plan your digital transformation towards the 3D, you need strong commitment. And into the retail part, I think that for example, big retailers have a design team to design the new openings, the new stores, and usually this is one of the most important key person with also the category management and the space allocation team. So again, trade marketing and slash design and marketing. So I think it depends on the use case.
Yeah, and this is Ashley. I mean, I think the immediate use case today is e-commerce. And so what we're seeing is people who are further down the road, people who design and manufacture their own products, they have a product manager or 3D content manager in-house. Like, some people are having that 3D person already because they're designing, and then they're kind of absorbing the responsibilities of, okay, how do we take these design files that I'm already managing and get them usable on web, AR, and VR? That person could be on the e-commerce team. It could be on the design team. Could be, all rolling up to the CMO, as Matteo said. But we always kind of start with, at least if you design and manufacture products, how are you designing them? And that group is a good place to start.
Yeah, and I'll jump in and say that, there's still a number of companies that are running innovation teams. Like I used to do at WaferNext, I get a lot of inbound from ARV or companies looking to, integrate or do some work with us. There's still a number of, departments like that typically look at new technology that are looking at AR, VR specifically. But I would say the ultimate success is going to come is actually going to be more from, at least in our case, like a brand or marketing team, where they're focused on that end result, like what's their, conversion rate, and how, are they digitizing and competing with their competitors to get their, products in front of customers. So ultimately, the teams that are going to benefit the most live beyond the innovation team. The innovation teams are, fine to test stuff out. They'll do, small volume pilots, and they'll be interested in checking out new technology. But in order to really, scale and go after the more meaningful outcomes for the companies, you want to get as close as you can to how that product is getting, used by the consumer. And a lot of times it's those, marketing teams that are basically looking for additional content. Sometimes it's called like an enhanced content team. The same folks that might be doing 360 spins or video content. AR/3D is kind of the next evolution, and it's still, I would say early adopters for the most part that are leveraging 3D. However, I think over the next probably 3 years, we're going to see that shift to becoming, really a critical part of an end user's decision process, especially now, COVID's accelerated all of this. You can't make large purchases that you would traditionally go to the store, to try things out, or, for a while things were shut down. Things are opened up again, but consumers have had an opportunity to try out some of these, online vendors, and those boosts in sales now have created a lot more capital for those companies to go back and reinvest in new technology. So it feels like it's a good time to start reaching those right folks beyond the innovation teams.
Great.
Yeah,
so
devil's advocate, I feel like the innovation team often ends up being a dead end because they're not the person actually benefiting or needing to use it. But
I think
it's a good
simple
start.
Answer to this, Ashley, you nailed it. The innovation team is a great foot in the door, and they're great to test things out. But as one of my advisors said, anybody who owns a P&L is the customer for this. If they don't own a P&L, if they're not delivering on a number, and innovation teams very rarely do, then they are the wrong customer.
For sure.
Yeah, that's great feedback on that one. So as a retailer, you're kind of sold on VR, AR. What is the biggest hurdle for organizations wanting to get into VR, AR, whether it's technical or org structure? What are the biggest hurdles for people to get started?
I can start by taking that one. I think one of the hurdles, to have a great 3D strategy, it needs to be cohesive across a few different groups in an organization. So I've seen the biggest hurdle when an organization is siloed. So I bring up Lexus. Lexus we worked with a few years ago. We created holograms of their cars, and we were working with the marketing team, and we said, okay, where's your 3D model? And they're like, we don't have one. Well, you designed the car, you've got one somewhere, but it was getting, these different teams to talk to each other. So I was like, you don't need to spend money recreating this, you already have it. So I would say, making sure that you are talking to the design team and marketing team and making sure you're not recreating things you already have.
To just add slightly on that, Ashley, I think there's another opportunity for retailers to spread the costs out if they're building more complex things. The same models that you use for retail and e-com can be used for marketing, can be repurposed. They can also be used for training. And those three use very similar models, very similar interactions. In fact, the interactions that you use to sell a product to a customer with slightly different verbiage could be used to train your staff on how to sell that customer. So I think you really have to have this discussion at a very high level and say, look, you have the assets, you make the product, you have the CAD files, let us help you convert them to a usable file, and let's help you leverage them across not just your retail and e-com, but maybe your marketing and ads, and also your training, and all using the same assets. And if you can do that, and we actually saw this, one of our partners that's working with us is Jonathan Moss. He was the head of learning for Sprint, and they deployed AR training across 40,000 people. And what they did was they had an app on their phone that they were able to pull up and learn on it in 3D and in AR. And what they realized is some of the trainees were using this thing 10, 20, 30 times, and they couldn't figure out why. So he flew into one of the locations and he watched. And what it was the staff after the training was using their training to teach their customers. And so, maybe it's as simple as having a training mode, and then you click it, and now it's marketing mode. So that same thing that your trainees learned on and maybe got their high score or, got their scores on, they can hit, kiosk mode, and now that same experience has a, slightly different messaging. Instead of telling them to upsell, it's, teaching them the features or whatever that is. But I think there's a huge opportunity to leverage the fact you have these assets and experiences across all parts of the enterprise or other parts of the enterprise.
Great. All right, so we'll close on one final question, and it's where do you all see VR, AR in retail in the next 3 to 5 years?
The first thing I would say is mobile first. People are, COVID has expedited online retail and mobile-based retail to the point where there's a quote out from the COO of Shopify, Harley Finkelstein, and he says that they're seeing levels of e-commerce that they had planned for in 2030 happening in 2020. Nike is a great example of that as well. Their plan was to have 35% digital market penetration by 2023. They're currently sitting at 50%. So COVID hyper accelerated everything, and I think it's now start immediately. Do not stop, because it's going to be it's going to go from a nice to have to a must have in a very short amount of time, much faster than I would have anticipated previous to COVID.
Yes, this is true, even if I see also that the market is running towards the virtual reality, but usually they are looking for a mass adoption of a technology. So maybe I saw, for example, in the fashion industry, a great need of a virtual reality solution for the COVID emergency, but on the other side, they want to be online on a web browser, because they know that nobody into their specific business has a good VR set, for example. I think that the solution for the next future will be a change in the technology where standalone devices will be smaller and cheaper and more powerful, and maybe also the 5G will have a role into the pixel streaming technology, so we will be able to stream the super high quality without the need of a heavy workstation or GPU directly to a glass or to a standalone device. Also, new standards are coming, both inversion and TAN and FreeXR. A member, for example, of Kronos Group, where we are working on the 3D commerce open standard for the product digitization. So a lot of changes are coming.
Which seems like a great idea to have a global standard, but when 30% of the market, namely Apple, decides to leave that standard, is it really a standard anymore? And this is the problem that we're seeing with 3D. There is no standards. Everybody was moving to GLTF, and Apple gave everybody the finger and said, no, USDZ is our format. So we have a bifurcated system, and this is causing grief for everybody.
Right, and at least at Ventana, we're trying to help people with that. But yeah, we're part of the Kronos Group too, definitely pushing GLTS. But at the end of the day, whether you're using photogrammetry or LiDAR scan or designing in one of these existing 3D programs, there's going to have to be some processing done. And so yeah, that's what we're trying to get rid of. But I would say I agree with you. 5G is going to enable even more incredible AR, VR applications. But e-commerce is up 68% month over month from last year, and having a 3D version has proven to increase online sales. So I see the comment of cost risk. There's no, you got to invest to make money. Like doubling your online sales is 100% worth some investment now, I would say. And that's doable literally today. And where this is going, it's going to prepare you for this very near future of product placement in esports games and all of the 3D advertising that Google and Facebook and Snap literally can do today. So I think that's what's so exciting.
Yeah, I'd echo that sentiment that, it is here and now today. Audiences are starting to discover, that they have this functionality in their device today, in their pocket. They can have these AR experiences. And the more they start seeing that content across channels, the more they're going to start expecting it. So in the short term, the next couple of years, that's definitely going to be driving adoption, and 3D is going to become, pretty quickly a must-have part of your e-commerce strategy. The other interesting observation that I'd make is that, in parallel to smartphone adoption, we're probably around 2005. So maybe a couple years out from a real watershed product, and maybe that's something Apple's developing. Maybe it's further refinement of products like the HoloLens. But I think we will see that, products come in the next couple years, and it'll take years for that product to go really mainstream. But when those types of wearable AR experiences, start to exist, they're going to need content. And so creating that content now starts making those future devices a lot more appealing and attractive, which, you can see all the major tech players making heavy investments into solving problems around, battery life and, fashion and wearability and desirability, etc. So those problems are going to get solved. What, you can do now as a brand is get your content ready for taking advantage of that, basically watershed moment where consumers are no longer looking at rectangular screens and digital content just becomes, part of their environment. So that's, for me personally, something I get really excited about when I think about building a business for the next, decade or 2 decades. The long-term opportunity around 3D is going to be in, a user interface that requires 3D. But meanwhile, there's a ton of value to get out of it today that there's no reason to wait.
Mike, I think because we've all been in this so long, we kind of see where it's going. I have this phrase that I use now that we're going to go from phone to face in the next 3 to 5 years. And it may be shorter.
Nice way to describe it.
It's got to be 3 to 5 years, somewhere in there. Now, having said that, next year in January, I know that a couple of the AR glasses are being released. Nreal and Mad Gaze are coming out, and they're partnering. They've partnered with Qualcomm, obviously, for the chips, but they also have partnered with a number of telcos. So I know AT&T made a massive investment into Magic Leap, and it was just a little bit too expensive. But the Nreal glasses are going to retail, I think, something like $499 or $599, and they'll connect to your phone via USB-C. So those glasses are coming out. Again, the stumbling block is going to be content creation. I don't care if you give me the glasses for free. If there's no content, what's the point? They're going to sit in a drawer. So we have to have a rapid way to create content, and which is really why the ethos of our kind of platform is that it should be easy to learn, create, and share. But it really has to be that, because if Bob in marketing and Sally in training can't make these themselves, they have to go to hire a developer and bring them in, and this is where it falls apart. So for the next 3 to 5 years, it's going to be, how do we enable everybody to create 3D content, because content will be the bottleneck.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, in closing, I'd love for you each to kind of share any suggestions, kind of closing, parting thoughts, recommendations to the audience.
Sure. This is Ashley. I would say don't be afraid to get started. And I'd say, going back to the cost, 3D can replace all of your content needs. The IKEA kitchen catalog, not a single photo was taken. That's all rendered images from the same 3D that they use to create the 3D web and AR. And so I would say, my biggest advice is to create a holistic 3D strategy so that you are actually significantly decreasing your costs, because this 3D becomes your entire content creation pipeline.
Yes, I totally agree. For the 3D digital transformation, companies need to have an approach, a strategic approach, not a tactical one.
It's Alan here. I will also add that the best time to plant a tree is 50 years ago. The second best time is today. So start immediately. Don't waste any time. We have a completely free version of our software. I'm sure Ashley will offer you a couple of models to try out their system. Same with 3XR and Matteo. And we all have free versions where you can get in and try these things. Just get started. If you go to engine.metaverse.com, you can sign up for an account. It's free. You can make up to 5 projects. Try it out. Start to build something that you can get internal buy-in from your C-levels. So build something great, or let us help you build something great. All of the people on this call here have vast amounts of experience in this, and so we can help you create something that helps you sell this to your executives. And today is the day to get started.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is Mike at 3XR. I invite you all to come to our website, 3xr.com, to sign up for our freshly launched products now. So we have a full end-to-end production management setup, and we're running pilots now for customers to basically digitize a few models, maybe a dozen or so, in a pilot agreement. So it's a low-cost way to get started and see how the process has evolved and how easy it can be to go from some basic product images to fully ready-to-use 3D models. And then, if it's successful, our pricing model is SaaS-based, so it's not a huge upfront commitment. It's more of a pay-as-you-go and get value from your products. So it's a great way to get started. Again, check us out at 3xr.com. We'd be happy to set you up with one of our pilots.
All right, thank you. Well, I hope everyone learned as much as I did today and had as much fun. I'd like to thank Ashley, Alan, Matteo, Mike for participating, and to our listeners who joined us today. Really appreciate everything, and looking forward to seeing you guys all at the next event.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.